So thank you for joining everybody tonight. This isn't stuff that Ed and I enjoy talking about, but tonight we're going to get into what's happening in the Sebastian Rogers case, the circus that's circling around a missing child, 15 years young, February 26th of 2024 this year. And there's more hoopla and there's more circus atmosphere going on than searching for this child. Ed, how you doing today? And thank you for coming live early with us. Your thoughts on this?
Well, excuse me. Well, the circus I could do without. Finding this child and figuring out what happened here, we haven't heard any new news out of it. The police are holding their cards close to the vest. And remember, because we don't hear any new news doesn't mean things are not happening. Okay. So I wish we heard good news. And I pray that we hear it. So hopefully it'll be coming shortly.
Yeah. And, the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department has been very quiet, the TBI, the FBI, and we know that Secret Service, the U.S. Secret Service is also involved. They have multiple agencies working this case, but because there's not a lot of talk about it, it's got some of the people who are covering this case. And one of them I'm going to mention by name, Bullhorn Betty, was brought into court on Friday and issued numerous protection orders by Chris Proudfoot and his side of the family, Katie, Chris. And this is a split family. You have the biological father, Seth Rogers, and you have his Sebastian's mom, biological mom. They're not together, but there's this wild circus atmosphere. And Bullhorn Betty, I mean, look, I don't even like to give her airtime, but I have to now. This has gone way too far, but this has happened in the Summer Wells case, first with Gabby Petito in 2021. Summer Wells, in that case, there was a circus atmosphere going on. Look at little Quentin Simon. That case in Georgia was a cluster. And it was so much of a cluster that the police down in that jurisdiction in Georgia, Sheriff Hadley in Chatham County, they had to install no trespassing or no loitering signs on the block. There was a guy who was in hospice in one of the neighboring homes in that case, and they were out there causing a ruckus. It wasn't just her in that one. It was a bunch of people. But she's got a whole long history of bullshit. And I call her Bullshit Betty, not Bullhorn Betty. The reason I call her that is because she's shown her true colors. She's shown her cards. She doesn't care one bit about these victims. She cares about lining her pockets and making money. And she doesn't have a steady income. So this becomes her income. And this is where the problem is. The motivation for her is not truly the victims or finding the missing people or children. It's for her own benefit. And she's got all her audience fooled. And I don't watch much of her, but I mean, I had to now go and look now that we see this. It's a disgrace. Ed, I know you got a lot to say.
Yeah, well, this type of antics gives the true crime community rather a bad name. And she is not helping. She's only hurting. She's getting in the way of law enforcement. She's diverting law enforcement resources to her instead of the investigation. She's causing all kinds of mayhem that got her dragged into court and issued protection orders against. Okay, the next step is she's going to get collared and she's going to go in the system.
Right.
Okay. Now she doesn't live in these communities. She travels to these communities and causes this mayhem. Okay. Right. You're not helping. All right. And you're giving us all a bad name. You have no law enforcement background. You have no criminal investigative background. You're not a private investigator. Okay. You call yourself a journalist, according to what I saw on YouTube at the hearing for the, the restraining orders, if you will. This has got to stop.
Yeah. It's nonsense, because what it does is it takes good people that may want to help or may want to offer help to not just, Seth Rogers, but to the Proudfoots. And it makes people want to just walk away from this thing, because you see the circus that's circulating. It's not gonna waver. Law enforcement is not gonna waver from their job. They have a job to do. Their job is to find out what happened to Sebastian Rogers. That's it. They don't. This stuff is white noise, and this is really something that causes. Look, this court had to be in session for 4 hours. So let's take a listen to this, Ed. I got to have our audience hear this. This is really unbelievable. 4 hours. They played a 9-minute video from Bullshit Betty's YouTube channel. They showed the judge all the evidence that they have against her. And it takes away from what's most important. Sebastian Rogers. Try to find this young boy and bring him home. It's despicable, but let's listen to this.
Well, the mom and stepdad of a missing boy just won a legal battle against a YouTuber who's covering that case. This all started when 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers disappeared back in February. A month later, true crime social media influencer known as Bullhorn Betty.
I don't call her any influencer or any true crime, nothing. She is Bullshit Betty.
Started posting videos about the Sebastian case. Well, in July, Sebastian's mother filed an order of protection against Betty. Then the following month, Betty, whose real name is Andra Griffin, was arrested, and that was for violating that order. So all of that brings us to today, where News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry is outside the courtroom after the judge ruled in favor of another protection order, and this is for Sebastian's stepdad.
In this temporary order of protection obtained by News 2, Christopher Proudfoot claims that Andra Griffin stalked and harassed him and his family. The defense for Griffin argued for the First Amendment rights of the YouTuber, saying she expresses only her opinion and has covered multiple missing persons cases in a similar matter.
She has fucked up multiple missing person cases with her outrageous behavior. She hasn't covered them. She has made them into a circus.
Griffin testified several times, saying she never initiated direct contact with Christopher or had ever met him. In response, the prosecution submitted a 9-minute video as evidence of Griffin's prior YouTube videos. In one of the clips, you can see Griffin as she shares her opinion, saying she indicated Sebastian's mom and dad had the knowledge of how to dispose of a body. She added she believes they may have had something to do with Sebastian's disappearance. It is important to note that law enforcement has not said any foul play was involved in the disappearance.
And I'm going to stop it there just for a second. I'm going to put us both back on. What civilian or even us as retired law enforcement, you're a first grade retired detective, I'm a detective that has searched for many people in fugitive enforcement. When we're civilians, it's not our job to figure out who did what. If you want to go and search for somebody or you want to help try to find someone who's missing, that doesn't mean you're going to play investigator. Ed, you're a private investigator yourself. You know about stuff like this. Where does she go wrong? Where do people on YouTube go wrong when they take it to the next level?
Yeah, so it's funny. In order to do those kind of things, you need to be a private investigator. So
Ed's digging out for his credentials now.
Here's my 2 licenses in the state of New York and New Jersey. Okay, I am a licensed private detective, unlike other people who say they're licensed when they only registered a company as an LLC. Anyhow, and don't have a private detective's license. And then you have to carry insurance, and you have to have a bond, and you have to do all these things. Now you also have to have a client. You just can't inject yourself as a private detective into a criminal investigation. A family member or a loved one can hire you to conduct a private investigation of what transpired. Yeah, okay, but you still can't interfere with a criminal investigation conducted by the law enforcement agency.
Yeah, and printing your own license, as someone said here, we don't know if she did or didn't do that, but printing your own license, that's a crime in itself.
Yes, so criminal possession of a forged instrument, and you're creating fraudulent documents. And in addition, if she's going to be claiming to be a press, now the press has to have credentials, and the press gets the credentials from various law enforcement agencies. So that's another thing. She doesn't have these things, and we don't either. We're not out there injecting ourselves into the investigation. We're giving you inside information about our experience and what this means, what that means, and which direction the investigation will go, and based upon our experience. She has none of that.
That's what's unbelievable. And, authorities know this. They know, now that she's in the courts here, they have their own court clerks and law clerks that look into her background, look into these things. But as far as it goes with this protection order, I looked it up, and it is criminal. It is a civil proceeding to get a protection order. But once you break them, they become Class A misdemeanors. And it's alleged here that, and it's talked about here, that she's broken some of these orders of protection, these protection orders, as they call them in Tennessee. But they are punishable by 11 months and 29 days. And do the math, that's a year in prison. And if she broke 6 of them, or 4 of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, or whatever the number is that she's broke, because she's got a court date on November 20th, you could be, if it's 6, she's looking at possibly 6 years in jail for breaking them. And I'm going to play a little bit of a clip from an attorney in Tennessee. That's what you look at. When you violate this civil proceeding that we saw on Friday, when you violate those orders by the judge, becomes Class A misdemeanors. So she's riding a slippery slope right now, and she's doing it all to herself, and she's doubling down, because after the judge gave these orders out, she went live on her YouTube channel and called the judge a fraud, or badmouthed the judge and said that he was running a criminal enterprise in the state of Tennessee, and talked about criminal enterprises with the Proudfoots. She didn't mention them by name, but it's laughable, but it's causing a lot of havoc in this community, in this area that really doesn't need this extra nonsense.